opening a new office in Indianapolis on June the 1st. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. There's someone whose hand is up that says iPhone, and we don't know whose name that is. Will you please identify yourself? It would be your turn to speak.
Hi, Darlene. I believe that's me. This is Rob Dahlhaus, Executive Director over at CU at Home. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you all for your leadership. I just wanted to lead off first by saying, please know that I am praying hard for all the folks that serve in a leadership position, because I know that this is an unprecedented time, and we all are making difficult decisions and doing the best we can with that. So please know that you are in my thoughts and prayers. I wanted to just come and share some information in regards to our Friends Without an Address, the homeless population here in Champaign, the shelter services, and kind of what the impact of COVID has been on that, and just share some information about that and how our folks are being taken care of, and how this lockdown and sheltering in place has affected them. It's interesting that we've had the privilege of serving over 300, nearly 350 different men at the men's emergency shelter this season, which began back on October 31st of 2019. And praise be to God that we've not seen a single case come through the shelter, and so we're happy about that. We're excited that has not been something that's come to our door yet. There's obviously testing in place. We've got social distancing practices in place. We've actually moved the shelter to the Douglas Center gymnasium to allow for up to 60 men to be in the same space, and we have had numbers that high this season. So it's amazing to see the community come together, the Park District give support to help get through this time and make sure that those men in need are having a place to stay. A couple concerns that I have or that I've seen, and I do not have statistics and I have not run analytics on these, but anecdotally I can share what I've seen from our friends on the street and how this has affected them. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of anxiety. I've had some folks come up to me and say, I don't know how to shelter in place when I have no place to shelter. We heard that. That was one of the main reasons that we've expanded the hours of our daytime drop-in center, the Phoenix, 3 different times over the last 2 months, because as places continue to shut down, there's no place for our friends to go. This is something that is affecting a sector of our society that's often forgotten. And one of the concerns I have is about motivation. One of the things we work with those on the street is about empowerment, and with so many things shut down and continuing to be shut down, we see a lot of our friends turning to drugs and alcohol. It's just a way to self-medicate. It's a way to heal the pain, and that's certainly not all of them, but we've seen that. Anxiety and tensions are running high. Our folks just don't have the ability to go to those places, to the coffee shops, to the libraries, to fill out as many job applications as maybe they would, or interact with other people the way they would. There's just a social aspect that's missing around town, and I understand we want to keep people safe. Please hear me say that. I totally understand that. I'm just here to try to speak to some of the concerns that I'm seeing and that we're seeing at the ministry level with those on the streets. Having to expand the shelter season, which we've done due to the COVID epidemic, from April 15th to April 30th, and then again to May 30th and beyond. We're continued to be committed to do that, to make sure our friends have a place to stay. But I would encourage everyone to continue to look at, what are some of the long-term effects going to be if this lockdown continues. And I believe at that time that is all I have to say. I appreciate everyone's time, and thank you again for the community's support for our most vulnerable homeless here in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, I think that will close public participation. For those of you that are members of the public, we very much would like you to continue watching the meeting if you want to, but we need to get you off of our Zoom application so that we can better run the business part of our meeting. So please feel free to join us on our live streaming so that you can watch the rest of the meeting. Thank you. Also for the board, starting at this point in the meeting, since it's the business part of the meeting, I'm going to not be taking voice votes because it's difficult to tell how many people are voting for what. And so you know that you have on your screen, if you have your participants checked at the bottom, you have a line that says participants, and you should have a line of participants along the right side of your screen. And then at the bottom, there's a little button that says raise hand. So if you wish, I'm going to raise mine right now so you can see. Well, I can't because I'm hosting the meeting. Oh, yes, I can. Okay. So if you press the raise hand button, the little blue hand appears, and that means that you are either wishing to speak or you are voting for whatever we're voting for. I'm going to take the votes that way because that way we can actually count the votes. Mr. Young, I see you've just raised your hand. So are you practicing? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to do it that way because, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move on now. Pardon?
There was just a question in the chat asking whether or not department heads that aren't board members should continue to watch here or go to the stream. I didn't know if that was.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, that wasn't on. I've got it on. So yes, people who are going to present something at the meeting regarding one of the items on the agenda should stay on because that way they can respond if there are questions, but otherwise you should go to the live streaming to watch the meeting. Thank you.
And we're live streaming in 2 places. You can watch it at www.video.ibm.com/channel/Shamco1776, or we're also live streaming it on the county's Facebook page.
Okay, and I would also like to say that I noticed earlier that Cynthia Fierce has joined the meeting by phone. So I want to be sure that when we do our votes that we ask her by name so that she vote. Okay. All right, so now we are moving on to item number 8 on our agenda. Mr. Rosales, would you like to make a motion for item number 8?
I move adoption of resolution number 2020-136, appointing Diane Michaels as a county board member in the District 2 to replace John Clifford for an unexpired term ending November 30th, 2020. Could I get a second?
I'm seconding. You're chairing them yet. Okay. So for a second, and you need to raise your hand, please, so I can see who's doing it. No, on little buttons, raise your hand where the blue on where it says, okay, and Mr. Rector.
Where are the buttons?
Second, Mr. Rector. The bottom right-hand side of your screen has the raise hand button. Okay. Is there any discussion about this motion? If so, raise up your hand.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Summers, you have the floor. Mr. Summers, you have the floor. You are muted, Steve. There.
Sorry, it's a mistake on my part. My hand's back up if you look.
Oh, okay, that's, okay, no, you should take your hand down. We're not voting yet.
Yes.
Are you, did? We're all frozen. Sorry, we're frozen. We're all frozen, Andy.
I'm still seeing people.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting you okay, darling.
We can-
Your-
we
your
can
video
hear
is
you.
chopping.
Yeah, okay, I can't see or hear. All of you guys are frozen on my screen. So, Mr. Summers, did you have something to say to the motion? Oh, he's turned off his hand. Okay. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none. The motion, please raise your hand. The blue hands. And Cynthia Fears, if you could just tell us what you vote, please. You're on mute if you're talking, Cynthia. Do you still see her hand, Andy? But is she on the phone still? Okay. Cynthia, I will, if you can unmute and would you like to vote on this issue? You need to
She-
unmute your phone.
She can
There
also
you go.
she can also hit
Nope.
*9 to raise her hand.
If you hit *9, your hand will raise on the screen. We'll be able to see as a vote.
Darlene, you're cutting in and out. What are we doing right now? We're raising our hand to vote for Diane Michaels.
Everyone has voted, I believe, for Diane Michaels, with the exception, I'm trying to get Cynthia on the line because she's on the telephone. She's not on Zoom.
Oh, I didn't know
So
because I didn't know what it was. So
you haven't voted? Okay, yeah, that's what we're voting on. So you can raise your hand if you're in favor. Okay, I'm counting. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Have the oath of office now. The county clerk is here to the oath of office to Ms. Michaels. You may not be able to hear this, but Erin is here and Diane is here. They're together here, but they don't have a microphone to do it, so you may not hear. Okay. New board member, congratulations and welcome to the board. Okay, those of you who have your hands raised, you can lower your hands now. Okay. I'm going to be handing the gavel over to Mr. Rosales so I can say my annual report to the board. So Geraldo, it's yours, and I'll just go ahead and start. So I sent this out. I sent. Don't turn your mic on. Okay, sorry. If two people are on it, be back. Okay, I am going to try to share my folder. How do I'm not finding the right button. Where's Andy? There. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to find my screen here. Okay, you guys can follow along if you went to in the copy that was sent to you, or you can just follow along on the screen here. This is the annual report from the county executive to the county board, which is done every May. I'm not going to read through each page because that's one reason I sent it to you, so that you can see the pages. What I want to do is just briefly go through this. Oh my goodness, I gotta do all these things. Okay. All right. So the first 5 slides, slides 1 through 5, just basically outline a summary of the duties of the county executive. I went into these in pretty great detail last year since it was the first year that the county executive was in office, but it's more of a summary this year. So the main thing I just want to say here is that there are some things the county executive is responsible for in terms of external services to residents of the county, in terms of highway planning, zoning, and animal control. And there are other things that the county executive is responsible, which is actually, I'd say, the larger amount of time on internal support for all of the offices of the county through what I call the 3 legs of the infrastructure for the county. So that would be facilities, IT, and the personnel. And so I offer support to all of the other county officials in those ways. And that's how I spend a lot of my time. What I can also say is there are a lot of other duties that I do that are sort of in the other category. And I would say during this COVID epidemic recently, it would have been nice to have a public relations officer for the county. So I'm not going to go through each one of those individually, just going on down through the list. These are just graphs, and this will be posted on the website as a handout. I represent the county on a lot of boards and commissions. These are some of the main activities that I. So now we're moving into the next slides, which are basic current legs. Oh, it's advancing here. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. We have technical difficulty working on it. I'm working on page 6. If you have this document that you're not watching on this, if you have it in hard copy, it's on page 6. Some of this information, again, you're very familiar with. We did this last year. This is the summary of the facilities that the county owns, and we own about about 652 square feet in Brookings and the other ancillary buildings, and then another 146,000 square feet over at the courthouse and the courthouse addition. In addition to that, 44 acres of property that we manage and maintain. So just a summary of that. There still is no information on this particular chart that we're going to be talking about for the downtown jail facility, as we've not come up with a plan for that yet. There's been no change to the county property since last May when we sold the nursing home. And in the next page, you'll be able to see some of the projects that were completed in the regular program that we had this year. Plus, we were able to complete a few projects in our 10-year deferred maintenance plan. We did not complete all of the projects in our 10-year maintenance plan because some of those will be deferred because of the budget concerns. So now on page number 8, and we're talking about the county infrastructure with regard to the IT. And again, this is the same chart that you saw last year in terms of the kinds of IT that the county owns and operates. However, we also completed, we adopted a share IT plan back in December of 2019. And so we have made some progress this year on that plan in year 1. I'm happy that there are several projects that are in progress, and you can see those outlined on the document. It'll say included in the ERP program 2020 or included in the Tyler program for 2020. So we are making some progress, and I'm very pleased to say some significant progress with this year being able to complete projects that will bring our IT more up to the current status. Probably the next main large amount of money that we need to spend will be on our telephone system, and then our central network is going to need upgrading very soon. So those will be the 2 largest projects coming up that we probably need to work on. And the next 2 slides have to do with county infrastructure with regard to personnel. We have made a lot of progress in this as well. The first page talks about the county workforce and a snapshot of where the county is at this time. We have comparison from last year, some here. So there's a 2019, 2020 comparison, and that is partly related to the sale of the nursing home. Some of the numbers with the county personnel changed at that time. But also you can see there still are some of the same concerns that we had last year, with particularly the number of turnovers continues to be extremely high. Which is a problem for us because we either hire people and they don't stay very long, or we hire people and then we train them and then they don't stay very long. And then we also have a lot of folks that have 15 or more years at the county are now in their retirement age and retiring. So that's still recruiting and retention seems to be a big issue for the county at this point. I want to mention that our workforce is getting younger. So you'll see that the mode age in 2019 was 44. Then 1 year later in 2020 was 29. Our mode age is now 29. So in 1 year alone, we've really reduced the majority of our employees are getting younger. It is clear that we are not yet an employer of choice, which is where we're trying to move with the county, and the various officials are trying to deal with that in a variety of ways. There is some concern from my office for a long time, and officials are going outside of that in order to get people to come to work for their offices and to retain them. So you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a blue box that talks about 50 mid-year wage increases and 13 people hired or promoted wages above the contractor midpoint, which is what our salary administration asks for. So one of the priorities for next year, or beginning actually second half of this year, will be trying to really take a very comprehensive look at our salary administration schedule. To that end, we started the workforce task force that is moving forward with trying to make the county an employer of choice. And as of May 2020, we have the left-hand column, recruiting, onboarding, and performance management, development, and retention tasks that we have actually completed to this date. We took some of the low-hanging fruit and we tried to deal with some of the onboarding training, training modules, leadership, things like that, employee assistance program. And then, of course, obviously the COVID required us to be more flexible with our work schedules, buying laptops for people to work at home, those kinds of things. So we have more flexibility that way. That's how far we made it in the first 3 months of the year. And then we're trying to move forward in what we're doing for our 6-year plan. And I will be bringing that back to the board at the June meeting to talk about a draft of a 6-year HR plan, which would coincide and go along with a 6-year IT plan and our 10-year facilities plan. Those are the 3 legs, the 3 important legs of our county infrastructure. So slides 12 through 15 have to do with the county finances, because obviously the infrastructure and all of the operations of all of the officials require that we have sound finances. The first page is just a very brief summary of the revenues that we can expect for 2020. As you can see, there's a reduction of 11.8% between our original budget and what we're projecting with our financial forecasting. The board was the recipient of the 5-year financial forecast last month from Tammy Ogden, who always does a great job with developing out a forecast for 5 years for the county. We have a very, I would say, not as robust of an outlook this year because we didn't have as much data and a lot of things are moving parts. And so many of the numbers that she's trying to project in terms of outlook were what I would call iffy estimates, but we are trying to do the best we can, and some of those change on a daily basis. So we're just trying to keep up with that, and she does review this very regularly to try to get a better sense of the numbers and what they're going to be. We've just summarized here briefly, and for those of you that didn't see it last month, you can see the 5-year forecast from last month. It'll be posted on the website. That's for you, Diane, because you weren't here. So the next page has to do with the expenditure summary. This has to do with both the amount in millions. The county's general corporate fund is 40.8 million, and then how different other funds are broken down. Most of those are specified funds for certain purposes. So the one that we're going to be mostly concerned with right now is the general fund. And then the percentages of how much those funds are of our county budget. And again, you can see more detail about this in the county budget pages when we get to the actual budget, the long document. The next page has to do with projects to increase revenue and decrease expenses. And these are ones that we have completed during since the last time I spoke with the board. It's kind of odd because we are in a January, December fiscal year, but I have to make this report in May. And so we try to give you the most updated things that I can give you, but it's not really the fiscal year. So we try to do the best we can with trying to give you the most up-to-date information. These are the things we accomplished. Last month, used the pet registration fees, and we updated contracts with municipalities for our animal control services. We implemented cannabis tax at the beginning of the year. We increased waste hauler fees a couple of months ago. We have negotiated internally some favorable renewal contracts with our health insurance broker, our copier rental, and our utilities that will hopefully hold our costs fairly steady. And we have this year, I think Tammy's mentioned a couple of times, we had reinstatement of the state AOIC support, which subsidizes our court services probation staff. And they had decreased that for a while, and now they've increased it back up to what it was before. So that was good news for us. In progress, we have a couple of projects that are not yet finished, but we've been working on with the board. An offer to join the Douglas County Enterprise Zone for the solar farm project. Exploration of intergovernmental agreement with Urbana to share some IT support services. There may be other opportunities that present themselves to share services that might save costs for us. And then evaluation of options for county purchasing. We're going back and looking at things that have been in existence for a while or that we need to renew contracts this year for vending services, purchasing office supplies, maybe between departments. We're all kind of purchasing supplies separately now. The next slide is talking about the nursing home obligations, and I'm just mentioning this because it kind of is not really on the radar anymore. The nursing home closed, the sale closed last April, and some of you I think that that was taken care of. We still do have some obligations with regard to the nursing home. These are things that transferred when we were discussing sale of the reliable funds, and then in addition, there's a loan of $1 million home that we are paying partially for their care at this point. Most of all the other ones have, we are no longer paying for. We started, when we sold the nursing, there were 44 residents and we're down to 5. But it's taken a very long time to get those 5 certified for Medicaid. And so we will continue to pay partially for those in agreement with our contract through the end of December, and unless they get certified before that time. So just wanted to remind the board where we were at with that. The next couple of slides are dealing with our update for the COVID-19 situation, because of course the last couple of months have been consumed with these kinds of things. And I know the board is interested in some of the financial parts of this. The board did approve budget transfer for public health to take money out of their reserve and put it into their operating funds. And this is just a small report from them about some of their budget and how they're spending the money so far. Where those monies have come from and how they're spending. So again, we keep in close contact with the public department. We know where that money is going, but at this point, they have spent the money they got from the state allocated for COVID. They continue to get some supplies in a way that's free from the state. We've been very fortunate, actually, that the state has provided a lot of services and things free at this point. And these are just an estimate of what they're doing to charge they have a project account set up, the fund basically for COVID, and they're keeping track of all the expenses for that. So this just gives you a little bit of a summary of where they're at with that and where they're going to be potentially spending money that comes from the county's budget for public health. And then the second part just talks about the Emergency Operations Center, which is how the county sponsors that. The county is responsible for coordinating that. The Emergency Operations Center coordinator actually works under Dustin. He's our emergency management person. And I just thought you'd be interested in a little more statistics about that. What I can tell you is that just today at 3:15, there was information about one of the most recent things that we're doing through the Emergency Operations Center, and released information to businesses in the community about potentially they can reopen. I did share that with the board. So if you haven't looked at your email yet today, it'll be a link on the new website for you to see that. We are trying to get information out as much as possible to help people that might be able to open in the near future. And also just to their staff safe and how things are working depending on the types of business they're in. This is a statewide effort. It's not just through our EOC, but our group has done a great job. I think we've had great collaboration between all of the different entities that are listed in the report, and we are one of those, but there are many partners. And I know that the question came up a couple of weeks ago at our committee of the whole about our money that goes to maybe the visitor center or some of the other things that the county funds, but doesn't all see what they're doing. This is a project that was primarily staffed by the visitor center. The Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Corporation coordinated putting all of it together. So I just wanted you to know that your money's being to good use, even though they're not your staff. We are certainly using their services. They're helping us out. The other thing I would like to say about that is that RPC internally is the grant-funded agency that provides a lot of services to the community for COVID. And there are many, many resources that they've gotten in terms of additional funding from the state for low-income persons, people that are not working, for business loans, different things like that. And if you go to the RPC website, you can look at what those might be. The other thing I would like to just say is that in the last week, while this has been being prepared and ready to come out, I think I've begun to see maybe some more hope in our county again. I think people were getting very, very tired of COVID and being at home and starting to get a little crabby with each other and anxious and impatient. And I think having some hope that there might be some return to some normalcy of some kind has helped people to become enthusiastic again And I really feel like having these documents out there will help us not be so polarized and will help people work together to try to make some pretty exciting, creative things happen. Okay, the next page it has to do with preparing for 2021, and this is sort of my look forward. So these are things that we're hoping within the next 6 to 8 months to be able to accomplish, and then going into 2021. So reopening county facilities and services back to the new normal, we'll be doing that over the next few months. Reduce the spending to close expected revenue deficit gap. We'll be doing that over the next few months. And the more that we can close that gap this year, the better off we will be next year when it will really hit our budgets. Census 2020 is gearing up again because that's been on sort of delay. You can still do it online, but for people that want help or that there be the door-to-door kind of things, those are starting up again. The Human Service Resource Plan is what I'm bringing back to you at the next meeting. Review progress on the 10-year facilities plan, IT plan, and county strategic plan. We will do that every year. I plan to do that every year before we start our budgeting process, so that's how we build our budgets, so that we're staying on target with our plans, regardless of the small ups and downs that we have. We want to still be going in that direction. And I know that a lot of times plans are put on the shelf, but this particular plan, I plan to use as our planning document to develop our budgets. Then we will do the budget in November, hold the general elections also in November. That'll be a big project for the county. Then we review the continuing nursing home obligations at the end of December, because that's when our financial obligations will be ending as far as any kind of payments that we might need to make. And we can see where we're at with that in terms of revenues and expenses that we might have. And then redistricting for the county is based on the 2020 census, and that goes from January to June next year. So those are the main projects that are on my radar. There's always a few other things that need to be taken care of, but those are the big ones, I think. And then the last part, I'm sure all of this, you were very interested in this very last page, which is why I put it at the very end. This is the fund balance guidelines, and the information about where we're at with the what I would like to recommend for the county budget. And so I've talked with Tammy, and I spent some long time talking with all the county department heads. These are ideas that came from you guys at the last meeting at the committee of the whole, and also from the county department heads. These are what we think will be able to help us close the gap. And then for recommendations going into the 2021 budget, these are the recommendations that could be put in place for the 2021 budget. And so we've already mentioned these. I mentioned them yesterday morning to the department heads, that this is what we had ended up with after all of our conversations. And I'm sharing with you guys tonight. I'd be happy to hear if there are any other suggestions or ideas that you might have for us to add to the list or consider in addition to this, because we had a pretty good discussion about it at the last committee of the whole, but there's always opportunities for improvement. So that's what I have for my report, and I'd be happy to talk about anything you would like to talk about if you have questions. Are there any questions?
Hi, Darlene, this is Chris.
Yes. Okay, Chris. I can't see any names right now. I'm sorry. So go
Right.
ahead.
I raised my hand. I was looking at the recommendations for the 2021 budget, and I asked, are these something that you fully expect that you're going to implement, or are these projected things that are more likely to be probable?
What I'm asking, Chris, is that the department heads consider what we're thinking of as close to a worst case scenario, because I think it's much easier to ask for the cuts all when we're doing the budgets and preparing the budgets and saying, this is really what we need to do. And then it's easier later if we find out that we have more revenue at some point. It's easier to add things back in sort of in a tiered fashion, rather than to make minor cuts now and then in March say we need to cut some more things, and then in June say we need to cut some more things. So that's been the approach I've taken. Most of the department heads felt like that was a better approach to take as well, although it's really difficult for the first part to make the original cuts because they seem pretty draconian at the beginning. but with the caveat that, of course, things can be added back in if we have more money. The items, there's only a few items that are in the purview of the county board. The reentry program is one of those. The county board mileage is one of those. Most of the other things fall under the department heads. And so what I've tried to do is also give them as much leeway as possible under the we'll take a 4% across the board cut, but figure out the best way for them to do that, because they all have different ways they operate and different needs and different staffing levels. And some of them are huge departments and some of them are little departments. So they can figure out best, I think, how to do that in their own departments. I haven't tried to put forth a lot of recommendations, individual departments right here. But in the budget, as we're going through the budget process in the next 3 months, you'll see that starting to happen with the different departments coming up with what they're choosing. I think someone else had a question. Stan? Do you have your hand? Your hand is up? Okay, Stan does not have a question. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go back. May I have the gavel back?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
All right.
You got the gavel.
All right. I'm taking.
All right. I'm taking the gavel back. Okay. Thank you so much. And as always, I'm always open to input whenever the board wants to, send me questions or share things. You might think of something later. I'm happy to hear that. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie, you did have a question, or you want to say something? Stephanie? You're muted, Stephanie, if you want to talk.
Yeah, no, I just two things. One, I just want to be clear that I won't support cutting reentry. And two, if you're looking for something to get rid of, I have concerns about the merit increase. And so I appreciate the other increases that need to be made in order to keep up with the collective bargaining units, but I don't think doing the merit increase is something we need to do at this time.
Mark,
Madam,
Chris, did you?
yeah.
Chris, did you want to say something else?
Yes. Thank you for bringing up the reentry council thing, Stephanie. That was my reason for asking about whether the proposed cuts were kind of final or could be reconsidered. And I certainly think that it would be in the county's best interest to help to continue funding of the reentry program so that we can basically keep people from reoffending and getting back in the system and restore some of these people to their families and make a safer and better county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we should go through every single item to say whether we're in favor of keeping it or not keeping it right now, that budget process thing, but I see a couple of other hands. Steve, would you like to say something?
Just briefly that I concur with Stephanie's points as far as reentry and as far as the merit bonuses.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now we are going to move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Esri? Can I get a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Goss. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Remember, we took off item D, 7, and 8. Okay, those in favor, please raise your little blue hand on the side. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Consent agendas are roll call. Yes, it is. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Harper. Ingram.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Michaels. Patterson,
Yes.
Rector,
Yes.
Storr,
Yes.
Summers,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wolkin,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Clemens,
Yes.
Cowart, Dillard Myers,
Yes.
Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Fears,
Yes. Yes, she voted yes.
Furtado,
Yes.
Goss,
Yes.
Rosales,
Yes.
I'm muted, sorry. Patience. And in of the board that this is not a time to make personal opinion statements, announcements of community activities for fundraising, communication. Mr. Harper.
I'm good. Okay. Maybe this was public participation. I don't know. I thought it was communication. I'm sorry. Gentleman wrote me this letter, wanted me to read it on to the record. It's from George Woodard, owner of Billy Bob's Restaurant and Bar in Ogden, Illinois. Dear members of the county board, the current restrictions in place for in-house dining allows only carry-out orders, and the complete loss of income from bar customers has severely impacted my business. Hours of operations are down 33%. This in turn caused total receipts to be down 70%. Most of the staff is currently laid off, but to keep up with the carry-out business, I still have to keep enough employees on duty to fulfill orders. This has only resulted in a 24% decrease in labor cost. In addition to reduced receipts, I'm also experiencing additional cost when ordering food from our vendors. Prices continue to increase for food products, which has caused me to increase costs for our customers. I've had to raise some prices twice so far and may need to increase some more. I'm also concerned with the additional future costs that may be incurred with the restrictions imposed by for opening. The mandated health department requirements will likely result in increased costs for additional cleaning staff and other changes I may have to make to be compliant. I would like future requirements and restrictions mandated by the health department for opening in any capacity to be available as soon as possible. Time will be needed to be compliant to be able to open our doors. If all business and restaurants are trying to achieve compliance at the same time, there may be delays in obtaining necessary products and materials. I also have concerns for the impact that may occur based on Indiana beginning to open bars and restaurants. Driving to Indiana to dine only takes about 30 minutes for most of our local customers. There are also nearby communities opening their bars and restaurants here in Illinois. Whether that is right or wrong, it is happening and may attract local customers, which could cause loss of business here. Sincerely, George Woodard, owner. Do I still have the mic? Uh, First of all, as most of you know, I've been kind of away from this for 2.5 months. I apologize for that, not having adequate internet service. And when we tried to get it installed, the installers didn't want to be out with the COVID virus out. But I have some things I'd like to say, but Darlene said not to make it personal, and it's not personal. I'm kind of upset with some of the things I've been following and reading, going clear back to the March elections, through the facilities. I've just recently heard about an ad hoc committee. And for 8 years that I've been on this board, we've heard the same stories. And this is a facilities issue. We've opened this up, past chairmen have opened this up to the community to give us their ideas, and I'm tired of it. If we don't have the guts to move forward, don't bother me with another damn committee. And I read about a board review, a person that's competent to be on the board, has the requirements, and you keep voting him down. That's ridiculous. We've dealt with enough incompetence around here the last year and a half that I can't take it anymore. Then the COVID. And I know it's a serious deal. Mr. Summers and I talk all the time, and I know he's a primary caregiver for his father, and I understand his concerns. But local businesses need to open up. And the local gym opens up in our little town of St. Joe, but gets shut down. And you've heard me complain that the rural areas do not have law enforcement. But between the state's attorney and the health department, they can find deputies to run the St. Joe to shut down a legitimate business that pays taxes. Again, where are we going to balance this out at? And I know now with the budget issues at hand, hiring more deputies is completely out of hand. But do not put certain programs out there that say they're untouchable. Everything out here is going to be touchable when this new budget is made. So basically, that's all I have to say. I'd like to go on farther, but you may not want to hear me. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Jim.
Mr. Goss,
Second.
second with Mr. Esri. Any discussion on the minutes? This is for the minutes for the regular meeting and the special meeting on March 10th. Seeing none, those in favor, please raise your hand on the right. Okay, those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next is the standing committees. Facilities summary of action taken May 5th, 2020 is received and placed on file. The environment and land use summary of action taken on May 7th, 2020 is received and placed on file. I'm looking for somebody who's got their microphone open. If you've got your microphone open, please close it because we've got feedback. Okay. Would the elect chair please make the committee's recommendation regarding item number 1 under B?
Yes, thank you. I move adoption of ordinance number 2020-7, amending zoning ordinance in zoning case 947-AT-19. And I'll note this is a roll call needing 12 affirmative votes to pass. Second.
Second by Mr. Thorsland. Any discussion on this item? Mr. Esri, your hand is raised.
Thank you. I'll make a few just quick comments on this. This is the amendment, which would basically eliminate the 0.5 mile separation between a solar farm and a conservation district, as is presently in our zoning ordinance. It was written in originally to have that separation, but having gone through the process of these solar farms coming, looking to get permits with the county, staff and Mr. Hall determined that they don't believe it's needed with the plantings that would be in the solar farms themselves, even if it's just grass growing under these solar panels. It's not a detriment to the conservation areas by any means. And if anything, it could potentially enhance the habitat for the conservation areas. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
It's a roll
Oh, I'm
call.
sorry, roll call, back to roll call. So, this just requires a simple majority.
Harper. Ingram.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Rector.
Yes.
Store.
Yes.
Summers.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Tinsley.
Yes.
Wolken.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Clemens.
Yes.
Court. Dillard Myers.
Yes.
Eisenman.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Fears.
Your phone is muted, Cynthia. If you can unmute your phone, you can vote on the subject.
She can unmute by hitting *6 for the record.
Yeah. You can hit *6 to unmute your phone, Cynthia. I'm not seeing her do it. Sorry.
Furtado.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Muted. Would the elect chair make the committee's recommendation regarding item 2?
Yes, thank you. I move adoption of resolution number 2020-121, authorizing county board chair to sign a deed in lieu of foreclosure on the property at 202 3rd Street, Foosland, Illinois.
Second.
Sorry, who did the second?
Thorsland.
Thorsland, thank you. Eric? Discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Aaron Essery, Darlene. You're muted.
Yeah, I see your hand. You
okay.
have the floor. You have the floor.
I was just going to again make a few comments on this. We've already tonight in the consent agenda approved a budget amendment for this. ELEC authorized the release of the invitation to bid for demolition in our meeting earlier this month, but there were the 4 contingencies. One was that the extension to the Illinois Housing Development Authority Abandoned Properties Program grant be already approved, which it has been. That's been approved for an extension of 6 months, according to Mr. Hall. So in essence, yes, we may spend county money on it, but we'll get reimbursed through the grant now. So that's good news. Mr. Goss had brought up the idea of a fuel oil, heating oil tank on the property. There is none of that. It was heated with propane, and that's already been removed, the tank. Both the owner and a neighbor have confirmed that. The budget amendment was a contingency that we've already taken care of. And so to get it demolished, obviously, we just have to approve this acceptance of the deed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor, this one doesn't require a roll call, so let's just raise our hands on the right-hand side. And Cynthia, if you want to vote, you can push *6 on your phone and unmute yourself. Okay, I'm not hearing her. Okay, those opposed? I still see a few little hands there. I'm seeing 4 people opposed. Are you opposed, or are you voting, or you didn't take your hand down yet? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next is Highway and Transportation. Summary of action taken May 8th, 2020 is received and placed on file. And then we move on to areas of responsibility. Summary of action taken May 12th, 2020 at the Committee of the Whole meeting was received and placed on file. We're down to policy, personnel, and appointments. Item number A. Mr. Young, would you like to make a recommendation regarding item 1?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you.
All righty, I move 1, the adoption of ordinance number 2020-9, extending the proclamation of a disaster in Champaign County for coronavirus 19 response.
Can I get a second to that motion? Ms. Cowart? Okay, any discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I guess we're ready to vote. Those in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, those opposed? Those who were in favor need to delete your hands at this point. Okay, those opposed, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, it's 12-9. The motion carries. Would the policy chair make the committee's recommendation regarding item 2, which is the one we brought up from the consent agenda?
Okay, I move number 2, the adoption of resolution number 2020-132, appointing Elizabeth Bergener Patton to the Champaign County Board of Review, term 6/1/2020 to 5/31/2022.
Second, Rector.
Mr. Rector seconds. Any discussion on this item? Okay, those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Those opposed? I'm sorry. Was that Cynthia? Was that Cynthia voting? Okay, thank you.
No, that's your audio
Yes.
being coming
Oh,
back
I'm
on.
sorry. That's my feedback. Okay.
No,
Yeah, I
it's,
didn't.
it's Rector's mic's hot and it's an echo from his room.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see her phone unmuting. Cynthia, did you want to vote on that one? Are you still there? I don't know if you're still there. Okay, those opposed? Kyle, are you opposed? Your hand is still up. Okay. Okay, motion carries. Mr. Young, would the policy chair make the committee's recommendation regarding item 3?
Yep. I move 3, the adoption of resolution number 2020-133, appointing Zebo Zeeby to the Champaign County Board of Review, term 6/1/2020 to 5/31/2022.
Can I get a second? Mr. Harper? Any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Now we're down to new business. Can the executive get a motion? I think we can do these omnibus. Can I get an omnibus motion for items A, B, and C? Item A, adoption of resolution 2020-017, authorizing execution and amendment of section 5311 grant agreement, which is for the rural transportation system. Adoption of ordinance number 2020-110 to provide for public transportation in Champaign County, which is related to that. And then adoption resolution 2020-138, acceptance of the special warranty, which is also related to this same grant. These are 3 documents.
So moved.
So move Mr. Rosales. Second. Can I get a second?
I'll second it, Darlene. It's kind.
Ms. Dillard Myers, thank you. Okay, any discussion on this item? I believe that we have somebody from RPC here if people have questions. Okay, seeing none. Whoops, I'm
Wait,
sorry.
Wait,
Mr. Story, you had a question?
yeah, since somebody is from RPC that's here to kind of elaborate on that, would you please ask them to do so?
Sure, I can absolutely speak to that. So essentially what we're asking for is the approval of a grant application. This grant application is through the CARES Act. Champaign County Area Rural Transit System is funded through both state and federal dollars. This is a new award through the federal section 5311 grant that we already received. This is just an extra award that we are receiving from the FTA from the CARES Act. This will replace lost revenue as C-Carts has gone fare free to reduce any contact between drivers and passengers. And it will also replace any, and it will also help us keep running as other funding sources are diminished.
Any other questions for Kristen? Kristen is the coordinator of this program, by the way, for those of you that might not know her. Okay, I think we're ready to vote. Those in favor of the omnibus motion for these 3 items, please raise your hands. And again, I'll ask Cynthia, are you there to vote on this topic? If so, you're muted. Okay, those opposed? Lorraine, your hand is still up. Do you want your hand still up? Okay. Down on the bottom right-hand side, just push the hand. Okay, okay. Okay. All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Sorry, thank you. Next, we have item D, adoption of resolution number 2020-139, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services and the Champaign County State's Attorney. This is a renewal IGA. Can I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, you got to raise, I don't know who it is. You got to raise your hands. Okay, Mr. Rosales, can I get a second?
This is Jim McGuire. I moved it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I second it.
McGuire, Geraldo, second. Did you get that, Matt? Okay. Any discussion on this item? Mr. Geraldo, did you have something to say? Your hand is up. Okay. All right, no discussion. Those in favor, raise your hands. Okay, those opposed? Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Next is item E, adoption of resolution number 2020-140, budget amendment 20-00020, Fund 075 for the Regional Planning Commission / Department 856, Permanent Supportive Housing, Independent. Increased appropriations of $205,000, increased revenues of $205,000. There's a memo attached with the reason. Can the executive get a motion?
So moved. Ingram.
Mr. Ingram?
Second by Summers.
Summers, thank you. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, roll call because it's a budget amendment, you're right.
Harper. Harper?
Yes, he said.
Oh. Ingram.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Rector.
Yes.
Storr.
Yes.
Summers.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Tinsley.
Yes.
Wolkin.
Yes.
Young. Clemens.
Yes.
Coert. Dillard Myers.
Yes.
Eisenman.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Fears. Furtado.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. That required 15 votes. Next is item F, adoption of resolution number 2020-141, budget amendment 20-00021, Fund 110 Workforce Development Fund to the Department 855 WIOA layoff aversion, increased appropriations of $400,000, increased revenue of $400,000. The reason is attached in the memo. This is new money for the Workforce Investment Board.
So moved. Thor's Land.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Ingram, second with Mr. Ingram. Discussion on this item. Ms. Furtado?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. On the previous grant, the small business grant, I know there were geographic limitations that Champaign, Rentoul, and Urbana were not eligible. Is there any similar limitations to this one, or is it open to the whole county, to businesses in the whole county?
I think this one, I'm not, is there somebody from the Regional Planning Commission that can answer that question? I think I know the answer, but Rita Delizzo, I don't think anyone's on from Regional Planning.
Rita was, where'd she go?
Yeah, I think she left with the transportation. I believe this is only good for the parts of the county that are not covered though in those 3 jurisdictions that are home rule jurisdictions.
Okay, if we could just for sure find out, and so that's clear to folks that might want to take advantage of this. Awesome, thanks.
Well, also to let you know that the Regional Planning Commission, I believe, had a news release today on the radio and TV, and they published out all this information about this new money that they're receiving. And so that'll be widely distributed. It's on their website at this point. So but I can ask if you want. Mr. Goss, you had something to say about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say I'll ask the question tomorrow. We have our PC at 8:30 in the morning, so I'll try to ask that question and send an email to you, Darlene. You can disseminate to the board.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, all those in favor, this requires a roll call vote. And 15.
Harper. Ingram.
Yes.
McGuire.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Yes.
Rector. Store.
Yes.
Summers.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Thorsland.
Yes.
Tinsley.
Yes.
Wolkin.
Yes.
Clemens.
Yes.
Coert.
Yes.
Dillard Myers.
Yes.
Eisenman.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Fears. Furtado.
Yes.
Goss.
Yes.
Rosales.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, next we're under other business. This is from the Labor Committee. Would Mr. Summers like to make the Labor Committee's recommendation regarding item 1? Mr. Summers?
Sorry, took me a second to unmute. I would recommend adoption of resolution number 2020-134, approving agreement between the Champaign County, the Sheriff, and the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Corrections Division, January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. Can I have a motion?
Thank you. Can I get a second on that?
Second, Thor's Land.
Thank you, Eric. Discussion on this item. This is one of our several Illinois Fraternal Order of Police contracts, bargaining unit contracts. Okay, those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Okay, those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. Some people's hands are still raised. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Summers, would you like to make the Labor Committee's recommendation
Yes.
regarding item 2?
Like to move adoption of resolution number 2020-135, approving agreement between the Champaign County Board, the Chief Judge of the 6th Judicial Circuit, and the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police, Adult and Juvenile Probation Officers, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022.
Second by Mr. Harper. And I would like to also say that this particular language has changed slightly. So this agreement is actually between the 6th Judicial Circuit Judge and the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police and Adult Probation Officers. The Champaign County Board needs to approve it as well, but the agreement is not between them. The Champaign County Board needs to approve it because they're financially responsible for it. You guys do the budget. So just wanted to make that clear. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we need to take a vote. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And thank you for the work for the Labor Committee on negotiating that. Next is the item B, Auditor's Report. So adoption of resolution number 2020-142, authorizing payment of claims. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Storr, thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rosales. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor, raise your hands. Those opposed, raise your hands. Okay, let's see. Mr. Gosh, your hand is raised. Did you want to oppose that? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get the hands right.
Yes, I want to oppose it.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And then adoption of resolution number 143, authorizing interfund transfer loans from fund reserves to other funds.
So moved.
Mr. Rosales. Can I get a second?
Second, Thorsland.
Second, thank you, Eric. Any discussion on this item? This is the interfund transfers that happen at the end of every fiscal year so that we can close the books. I think, yeah, Mr. Danos is on if anybody wants to ask questions. Okay.
Mr. Danos, would you care to speak to the resolution, please?
That was Chris Storr.
Hello, Member Storr. Sure. The resolution is a routine one that comes up annually. There are a few funds that have expenses coming before their relevant revenues, just in terms of when they come in. So at the end of the year, GASB requires that you not have a negative cash position. So what happens is we deem it as being borrowed from other like funds that share the same commingled bank accounts. So it's really just an accounting housekeeping convention.
Ms. Michaels.
Microphone. There you go. Can you hear me now?
Greetings, Mr. Auditor. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
I understand what you're talking about, and I kind of thought I knew what this was, but normally there's a little memo of explanation. And my question is this for 2019, and are we a little late on closing out 2019 at this time?
It is for 2019. We're a little bit late in closing 2019, but not especially so.
Okay, because I kind of thought that ended up in March. May I ask another question, ma'am? Okay, my next question is, some of these figures seem rather large. What months do these cover? Because that's more than just 1 month of expenses that we're covering. And then the second part of this is, has that already been re-encumbered in 2020 and everything back to normal?
Yeah. In the first part of your question, are you still referring to the resolution amounts?
Yes, sir.
They're not large. They're very typical, and they don't cover just 1 year. They're just the position at the, it could be at the halfway mark. If the fiscal year for the state, which is responsible for the monies, is at June 30th, it could be half the budget.
Okay, well, I guess because I'm seeing this money coming from the retirement account, especially 637 to the health life insurance, with which a lot of that does come from the county and then some from the employees. It just seemed like this was more than just a November, December amount that caused it to go into the hole that you're trying to
Correct.
clear out for 19.
No, that's correct. Could be a July to December amount, and
Okay, so 6 months.
and of course it gets paid back.
Okay, may I follow up?
It's not even. I mean, there's no check written. This is strictly accounting procedure.
I understand that, and I'm okay with that. My question is how long do you think it will take for those to pay back? Because of course that's now affecting your 2020 items that you're trying to work on probably in the next couple months.
You know what? I've got my brand new chief deputy auditor on, and perhaps
Cool.
I'd like to give you some granular explanations on that. Orion, if you could come on, that'd be great.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
At the end of the day, it just comes down to it being a classification situation. The state doesn't allow for there to be a negative balance on the books, theoretically, at year end for basically for any of the audits. So at the end of the day, we're just making a simple reclass entry to move it forward. And then theoretically, once all of the bank recs are caught back up, it should be back. I mean, at the end of the day, there aren't any actual negative balances in the cash, I guess is where I'm going with it.
Correct. Yeah, excuse me for interrupting, but I understand the first part of what you've just said. We already went over that. What my question was how many months does this actually cover it? And I believe the auditor said that's actually a 6-month figure that you're going to be re-encumbering in number only. I know there's no money physically going out, and that was my question. Because there really wasn't an explanation. A lot of people don't understand that you actually do take several months to close out the prior year. It just seemed like it was a little later than normal in larger amounts.
Right. It is just a little bit later than normal, and a lot of that has to do with just simply I mean, at the end of the day, it's simply just wrap up of the CAF for 18 there.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Orion.
Yep.
Are you unmuted, Mr. Harper? Okay. You can just press your space bar down.
I believe Ms. Ogden had something to say.
I did, thank you. I just want to make a comment about the health and life insurance fund. That fund is predominantly negative due to amounts that are owed to that fund from the nursing home. So I know this is a cleanup in terms of cash, but I do not expect that to be remedied until we are able to make a transfer from the nursing home fund or through reallocation of the levy to cover this amount.
Mr. Harper, did you say something?
Oh, We were having trouble with the microphone. I think everything's been answered. Like I said before, that probably hurt me in here was when I see money taken from retirement funds, I like to make sure they get back in there because we've seen what happens when retirement funds don't get paid, snowballs. So is that correct, George? Everything's
Oh, yeah, this, exactly. This doesn't imply any deficit in the funds that we set aside to pay pension.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Esri, did you have a question?
Sorry, no, I was just making the comment that Ms. Ogden had a comment to make. So that's all. Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
Ms. Furtado?
Oh yeah, just Tammy, to follow up on what you said, we're not anticipating the nursing home levy going to healthcare to the health fund next year, or are we? I thought we were going to be using that 2021 for the loan.
Yeah, no, I wasn't implying that
Okay,
we would
I just
be
wanted.
using that from reallocation of the levy. We did budget in 2020, however, for $500,000 to be paid from the nursing home fund to the health insurance fund if at the end of the day, all of our obligations, outside obligations had been met.
Okay.
And we still have remaining funds in Fund 81.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I understood it. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions about this for the auditor? Okay, seeing none, those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Just go to B. A. A's clear. Oh, no, nope, not anymore. Tom.
I'm counting. Okay, those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And I believe that is the end of our business this evening. I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for joining us. You just, yeah, you can leave. There's a button or